Should Manchester United be spending 65 to 70 million pounds on 21-year-old Bundesliga striker Benjamin Sesko? In my opinion, the answer is no. Stay tuned to find out why. Manchester United have a problem. They have a big problem. Let me show you who exactly that big problem is, certainly in the striking department. It's this man here, number 9, Rasmus Højlund, a man who was signed from Atalanta for around the best part of between 60 and 70 million, depending on where you get your information from. So what have Man United got for this 60, 70 million? As you can see here, last year, 24-25, Man United in the league got a grand sum of 4 goals in 32 games from Rasmus Højlund. The man has been an absolute disaster at this football club from top to bottom. And even though this video is about Sesko, I want you to remember this, and I want you to remember this point very clearly, because we're going to use a very, very similar line of questioning when we talk about whether Sesko is Man United standard or not. Look at Højlund's season before he signed for Manchester United. 9 goals in 32 league appearances for Atalanta. Again, if you look at his entire record, there's no proof, right? There was never any proof that Rasmus Højlund could be a prolific striker. Now, the feedback that has been coming from Man United accredited journalists, people that the club tend to brief, like Laurie Whitwell, Simon Stone, etc., etc., seems to be that Man United are ideally looking for what I call the 3 Ps. Premier League proven prolific, right? The 3 Ps. Premier League proven and prolific. If they can't find a Premier League proven prolific striker, 2 out of those 3 Ps will do. Proven and prolific. Let's just have a quick look, very quick look at some of the names that Manchester United were quite heavily linked with this summer. Victor Gyökeres, who ended up signing for Arsenal, okay? Is he Premier League proven? Absolutely not. However, if we have a look at his goal scoring record at a glance, before we get into XG and things like that, which we will get into over Benjamin Sesko, if you just take a quick cursory glance at his record in league football, you can see straight away that Victor Gyökeres knows how to find the back of the net. Interestingly, Victor Gyökeres isn't Premier League proven, but he is English League proven, because as you can see, during his stint at Coventry, he scored 21 in 49 in 2022, and in 2021 he scored 17 in 45. They were also heavily linked with the likes of Victor Osimhen, who at the end of the day just wanted too much money. He's on an absolute massive deal to re-sign with Galatasaray. So he clearly knows where his bank account is. Let me tell you, Victor Osimhen right now is definitely using, the American Express card. He's not using my Santander debit card when he goes for shopping down in the Turkish superstores. But anyway, let's have a look at Victor Osimhen's record at Galatasaray. 26 goals in 30 league appearances last year. And his record at Napoli, he had problems at Napoli on a personal level in 2023. If you look at his best season at Napoli, 26 in 32 games. So United seem to be looking for at least 2 of those 3 Ps. Premier League proven and prolific. And if you're not Premier League proven, we need you proven and prolific. Now, with that being in mind, let's have a look at Benjamin Sesko's profile. So with that being said, let's have a quick look at Benjamin Sesko. And before we get into a little bit more of a detailed look at some of his stats, I just want to have a look at his genuine overall profile here. 22 years old is the first thing that should jump out to you, right? If you're a Manchester United fan watching this video. Because again, remember what we talked about, the 3 Ps, yeah? And 2 of those Ps were proven and prolific. 22 years old, you are spending £70 million on a project. Let's have a look at his goal scoring record at a glance. Look at this. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but the first thing that jumps out is that he's not prolific yet as it stands. If you're looking at his stats here, you can see Benjamin Sesko over the last 3 years in league football is basically a goal a game striker. Excuse me, a goal every other game striker. He scores 1 goal roughly every 2 games. This season just gone, 13 goals in 33 league appearances. Season before that, 14 in 31, and the season before that for Salzburg, 16 in 30, all right? So the first thing that jumps out, right, is that he's not a prolific goal scorer. And for me, you absolutely have to take this kind of thing into account, because at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of people who know way more about football than me, and they're talking about Sesko's ability to play make the fact that he's a good passer, the fact that he can bring others into play, the fact that he can play in different positions along the front three, the fact that he likes to rotate around and all this kind of stuff. But let me tell you something, and you let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. In my opinion, when you spend, right, 65 million British pounds on a striker, for me, we need to see goals. And for me personally, I think we need to be seeing close to 20 league goals a season for that kind of money, or close to. In my opinion, we need to be seeing that. I'm pretty sure Ollie Watkins is at close to a 20-goal season for Aston Villa. And he's going on the market right now for around 40 to 50 million pounds. Now, Ollie Watkins is a lot older than Benjamin Sesko. But I'm just saying, right? When you start paying upper echelon money, I expect upper echelon output. Let's take a deeper look. Right, I've got my Benjamin Sesko profile up on the screen. Trust me, I am not smart enough to come up with a profile like this, but I know somebody who is. Let's have a look at Benjamin Sesko's output last year. Okay, we've already discussed this, right? Last year in the Bundesliga, 13 goals in 33 appearances. Straight away, that tells you we're not dealing with a prolific striker, a proven prolific striker. 2 of those came from penalties. Listen, if you are keen on Sesko, there is a good point here. 77% of his 13 league goals come from inside the penalty area. Now, that's a good sign, because what that potentially tells you is he's got quite good movement inside the box. He knows his way in around the box. I mean, like I said before, it depends on the situation, but we know that the box can get very, very, very congested at times, right? You've got, a lot of teams at the minute are playing like 3-2-5 formations, right? When they get into the final phase of attack, right? So, you've got sometimes a box congested with 3 to 5 opposition players all fighting for the ball against back lines of 4-5-1, 5-4-1. In the penalty box, you could have anywhere between 7 to 10 players at any one time, depending on the phase of the game you're in. So, like I said, it is an art form, all right, to be able to beat the offside trap, lose your man, lose a marker, find space in a congested area, get on the end of things and finish. For me, look, I'm a big fan of Barcelona. I think Robert Lewandowski, even at 37 last year, is possibly the best in the business at just finding that little half a yard of space, anticipating where the ball's going to drop in the penalty area and just getting on the end of things. He makes it look like a tap-in, but it's a lot harder than what it looks like. So pros and cons of this first section here: 13 and 33, not prolific. 2 of those from penalties. However, 77% of his goals are inside the penalty area. Now, Rasmus Højlund, is one of the least prolific penalty box finishers on the face of the earth. So if you're a Man United fan looking for a replacement for Rasmus Højlund, you might like those stats. But let's have a look at his actual output per 90 minutes, all right? If you look at this, and again, there's a reason for this. This is a little bit alarming to me. Now, his goals per 90 is 0.49. Now, if you look at his comparison of goals per 90 with top strikers in the world right now, I mean, like I said before, this is a very, very shallow comparison, because some of these strikers are playing in absolute Mickey Mouse leagues like Victor Gyökeres and such and such. The Bundesliga is an infinitely stronger league than the Portuguese league. But if you look at here, Benjamin Sesko's goals per 90, 0.49. I mean, it's nearly a third of the goals per 90 that Victor Gyökeres has, right? And there's a reason for that, and we'll go to that reason in a minute, but I just want to mention that. The other top strikers, as you can see here, your Kylians, your Harry Kanes, your Lewandowskis, your Isaks, your Erling Haalands. I personally think Erling Haaland is the best striker on the planet. You can see, right? They clearly have, much higher stats in that perspective. However, I will say, to balance it out, the reason most likely for that is this here, is the amount of quality chances that they're getting, all right? If you look at Sesko, his goals per 90 is significantly lower than the top strikers, but the amount of chances he actually gets per 90 is also significantly lower than the top strikers. Again, stats don't tell the story, but they often make a good discussion point, so I'm showing them to you here. This could be down to a number of factors, right? This could be down to the simple fact that Leipzig's team isn't as good as Man City, isn't as good as Sporting Lisbon, or they certainly play in a stronger league than Sporting Lisbon. It could just be down to the fact that for last season, Benjamin Sesko's teammates weren't able to put him in good enough positions to score, okay? And that could be a very, very simple reason why his expected goals are significantly lower than the top strikers, which is the reason why his goals are also significantly lower than the top strikers. Less chances to score normally results in less goals. It can also mean as well, as it says here, all right, and we'll get back to it in a minute. It can also say as well that he might not necessarily be putting himself in the best positions to score. I think that is a note here on my player profile. If it is, I'll find it in a minute. But that low XG can also mean that Sesko might not be necessarily putting himself in the best positions, right, to have quality chances on goal. So it can be the fault of the team, it could be the fault of the player. We don't know. But again, it's something to definitely have a look at the eye on. Another positive about Sesko, which I actually forgot to mention, is that he scores above his XG level, which is very good. So even though, as we said, yeah, the goals per 90 is low, the XG per 90 is low, he actually outperforms his XG, which is a positive. It shows him to be quite efficient in that respect. So yeah, let's have a look at the fors and the against, yeah, for Benjamin Sesko. Interesting, look, Matis Cunha, and this is interesting actually. Matis Cunha is also on my list, and Matis Cunha was signed by Manchester United for £70 million. And I always thought Cunha was a bit more of a playmaker type inside forward, as opposed to Sesko, who's is going to be expected to come in and score goals. And if you look there, Matis Cunha actually has a better goals per 90 and also a better XG than Benjamin Sesko, despite the fact he played for Wolves last season. So I don't know, make of that what you will. That was pretty interesting there. Let's have a look, right? So let's do the positives first on Sesko, all right? So signs that Sesko can be prolific. Look, Sesko consistently outperforms his XG, which we mentioned, which suggests sharp instincts and clean finishing. That is a valuable trait in low margin matches. This here, again, you're buying a project, yeah? 21 years old. You're not buying the finished article, all right? There's just been a little bit of breaking news, which I'm going to show on the screen right now, courtesy of David Ornstein, the best journalist in the business. And that is that Newcastle's £65 million bid that we spoke about at the start of this video has been rejected by Leipzig. Like, they've rejected it, all right? So if Newcastle want to buy Sesko, they're going to have to increase the amount of money. And again, you're now getting into the realm of 75 million pounds. Again, what do you want for that money? You know, are you looking to buy a project, or are you looking to buy goals today? Let me tell you something right now. If you have a look, right, on the right-hand side of the screen, and we just have a look at Manchester United's first 8 fixtures of the season, if I can find it. Yes, I can. These are Manchester United's first 8 Premier League fixtures. Arsenal at home, Fulham away, Burnley at home, Man City away, Chelsea at home, Brentford away, Sunderland, and then Liverpool, right? For me, quite simply, right, I don't believe that Ruben Amorim has enough time to spend £70 million on a project, because I've said it before, I will get abused for saying it. I believe that Ruben Amorim could be out of a job by Christmas. This first 8 games, the only team that I've seen with a harder 8 games is first 8 games is Arsenal. All right, Man United's first 8 games is absolutely running the gauntlet. If Manchester United come out of these first 8 games okay, they could genuinely mount a title challenge this season. I mean, the fact that they're playing once a week, they're not playing Champions League football, they're not even in Europe, they're playing once a week, yeah, when the FA Cup and Carabao Cup isn't on, right? So listen, you know, if they can get through this first 8 games, they have a genuine chance at making some kind of run at title contention, in my opinion. However, let me tell you something, the propensity, excuse me, for something to go wrong in their first 8 games and Ruben Amorim to be under serious pressure is high. So again, when you see this kind of thing, does it make you want to spend £70 million on a player like Benjamin Sesko? Finally, it says Amorim's system, right? Again, we spoke about how Benjamin Sesko has a rather low chance creation rate. Yeah, so Benjamin Sesko, he's not receiving a lot of goal scoring chances compared to the other top strikers. Again, he goes to Manchester United. He plays in a better team around better players, hopefully in a better system. We can see that go up. So again, size he can be prolific is all down to pure potential. Now, let's have a look at the signs against, all right? Signs that he's not going to be prolific. As you can see here, Sesko scored 13 Bundesliga goals in 33 games. Look at this comment here. 0.4 goals, 0.49 per 90. That's not bad, but not elite. He hasn't yet hit 20 goals in any domestic top flight league season. All right. So again, right, it's all about pros and cons. His XG, as we've discussed there, is only 0.38. I think if you look at his non-penalty expected goals a game, it's actually 0.32, I think, if you take penalties out of the equation. So again, it says here, that suggests that he's not consistently getting into high quality shooting positions. Again, could be down to teammates, could be down to positioning. We'll have to see. And again, it says here, players who hit 20 league goals are usually average, all right? They're usually averaging 0.60 XG per 90 minutes. So if you look at, again, this list at the top here, your Kanes and your Haalands and things like that. Another thing that I actually didn't note down here as well, which is quite interesting, is Benjamin Sesko and the amount of minutes he played, right? If you look at all of these top strikers that you can see on the list, like your Djokovic, your Kanes, your Mbappe, your Lewandowskis, these guys are playing, right, in the league. I think they're playing about 2,700 minutes a season, all right? Last season, I think, if the stat is correct, off the top of my head, Sesko only played 1,700 minutes in the league last season. So he played a significantly lower amount of minutes in the league season than a lot of the top strikers that are going around at the minute. Now, that could be down to rotational issues. Apparently, he wasn't even the first choice striker at Leipzig last year, and etc. etc. There are a load of reasons for that, which I'm not going to get into the video, okay? But that's something to be aware of as well. Like, he hasn't actually shown that and again, he's only 21 years old, right? But like I said before, he's going to have to play a lot more minutes, right? And show a lot more consistency over those greater minutes to get into this club here. These guys here, all right, are playing a lot more minutes. They're playing 2,700 minutes. And as a result, they're playing a lot more football, right? They're playing, obviously, they're getting themselves better quality chances. And that contributes to why, right, they are scoring more goals. So, look, that is that. Let's have a quick look at that Ornstein news and then we'll wrap up. So to finish with the David Ornstein bomber, as you can see here, RB Leipzig view Newcastle offer for Benjamin Sesko as insufficient. Newcastle proposal was 75 million euros plus 5 million add-ons, etc., etc. Manchester United pursuit continues, but no bid yet. Listen, Arsenal ran into exactly the same problem when Sesko was their first choice over Victor Gyökeres about 2-3 months ago, and they went into negotiations. Leipzig are an absolute fucking nightmare to deal with. In the end, Arsenal just threw the fucking towel in and went and bought Gyökeres. And let me just quickly say, and I'll quickly go back to these stats, yeah? Quickly. And again, I'm not saying that Benjamin Sesko won't become a good player. Leipzig are rejecting £65 million bids, right? Okay, Leipzig are rejecting £65 million bids for Sesko. Okay, Gyökeres, in my opinion, right, is the better bet. Yeah, in terms of a prolific striker. We already talked about the fact that he has a goal scoring record in England, right? We already looked at his numbers and his stats, right? The data so far suggests, yeah, that Victor Gyökeres is a better prospect, yeah, for being a 20-goal a season striker than Benjamin Sesko. And Arsenal managed to get Victor Gyökeres for around 55-60 million. Manchester United and Newcastle would have to pay probably in the region of 5 to 10 million more for that for Sesko. Look, like I said before, drop me a link in the comments. What do you think, yeah? I think that Man United fans are desperate, and they're desperate to get rid of this guy here, Højlund. They want this guy out. They are absolutely desperate to get rid of this guy. And I'll be honest with you, I would too. Like, you know, he has a few qualities here and there, but listen, if he was at my club, yeah, I'd want to get rid of him as well. For me, you have to balance it out, right? Do you want to panic buy, or is it worth starting this season with Rasmus Højlund, going into January and seeing what happens? What do you guys think? Drop me a comment and let me know at this stage. Has this video changed your mind in any way? Do you think I'm a complete moron? Would you consider saying that, listen, because you guys can't afford, and this goes for Newcastle, well, actually, Newcastle's slightly different, talk about that in a second, but Man United can't afford to spend another 60-70 million on Rasmus Højlund, right? And look at the profile. A young player, yeah, who doesn't have a proven track record of being prolific, but there's some potential there. And United end up paying over the odds for him. And he comes into Old Trafford, all right? The most... Man United is like, commercially, the second biggest club in the world to Real Madrid. The pressure is absolutely immense. A quick word on Newcastle, because I do have a very good friend of mine who's a Newcastle supporter. If you are a Newcastle supporter and you are watching this right now, you're in a slightly different position, I believe. Because what Newcastle are going to do is this: you can never replace, all right, Alexander Isak with Benjamin Sesko, right? That's not possible. Alexander Isak is one of the very, very best strikers in the world. You're never going to replace Isak's output with somebody like Sesko, right? So what Newcastle are going to do in the following is this: I believe Newcastle will sell Isak to Liverpool for 135 million. I believe, by the way, that's the reason why Leipzig have refused Newcastle's first bid, because they know Newcastle are desperate. All right. So that's what I believe's happened here. I believe that Newcastle will pay up, all right, and a second bid will come in. I believe they will sell Alexander Isak for 135 million or somewhere around that. I believe 75 of that will go to Sesko. Johan Visa from Brentford, I believe, will sign as well imminently for 25 to 30 million, and that will be him out of the door. And Newcastle will have a little bit left over, and they may go out and use that to go and purchase a third striker. So if you're a Newcastle fan, I think it's different, because I think what they're going to try to do is they realise, look, we're not going to be able to replace Isak. Look at this strike rate. The man scored 23 league goals in 34 league games. We're not replacing that with Benjamin Sesko. What we might be able to do is use the Isak money to bring in 2, 3, 4 players and spread the load around. Drop me a comment. I honestly believe, right, that he could end up at Newcastle, because do you know what concerns me about Manchester United in this situation? One is that I think they might need to put Højlund in a deal to sweeten the deal. And I know United say that they don't have to sell to buy, but I don't think United have or are willing to come up with £70 million to spend on Benjamin Sesko. Drop me a comment and let me know. Peace out.